Wanted to give an example of doing UV layout in Maya 2015. There's some better tools in this version than Maya 2014. Let's start by looking at the UV texture editor, and kind of doesn't look like anything. So to start with, I'm just going to do planar mapping, not because that gives me useful UVs, it doesn't, but just make sure it's one continuous UV map without any seams in it as a starting point. And then if you look at this, you'll see a lot of history in there. So I'm going to select the surface and delete the history. Edit, delete by type history. Then I want to do a series of cuts in logical places. Maybe I'll maximize the interface here, put my UV texture editor open, and start with the legs. And to make this easier, you can see I have Modeling Toolkit open. I'll hit Control Backspace again to clear out the interface, and you can turn that on from right here. And I'll select the edge in the center there and make sure symmetry is turned on. And that way, if I select something on one side, it selects it on the other. And so that looks pretty good for the legs. I'll go ahead and cut those. And then I'll go along the back of the legs, maybe the back middle. And I don't want it to go all the way up. One thing that's a good idea to turn on here is under Display, Polygons, Border Edges, Texture Border Edges. And it's pretty subtle, but if you look closely, this is a little thicker where I have my cuts there. And so now I can see where those two meet, and I'm just going to Control Select here so it just goes up to that one. And probably don't need to cut the bottom of the feet, so I'll deselect those, Control Select, and then cut. And then maybe along here and there and here. And it's a little tricky with these toes, but I'll probably just, finish out the bottom of the foot. Cut. Okay. Probably going to need to do more on those feet, certainly around the ankle. Cut. Okay, so might need to do more with the toes and feet, but I'll just leave that for the moment. Now I'm going to want to do let's do the arms first. It's a little tricky to find where to cut here. Let's try that. I'm just holding down Shift and double clicking. Okay, that looks pretty good. Cut. And much like with the leg, I'll do a seam along here. And it might, actually that looks pretty good the way it's going around the hand so far. Probably don't want to go all the way down the side of the legs. It could go down the sides of the body like that. Let's go ahead and try that. You can always change it back. So I Control selected that to deselect. I can see it's not meeting that other line, so let's make sure it does. Okay. And yeah, I like the way it goes around the fingers there. If I want, I can finish that by continuing to go around the thumb. Probably would want to do right here and then here. I don't want to double click because it's going to get me a bunch of edges that I don't want right now. So you can also click here and then Shift double click here, and then I'll just do that length like so. Oops. Did I get all the way around that wrist? I did. I did the other side okay, not too bad. All right, cut. All right, now neck. Cut. Maybe along this chin and the top of the neck, and probably along the back of the neck. Usually I do the spine as well. Let's see what this gives us. Generally don't want to cut down the middle of the front of the face. Right. And I might try to avoid cutting down the middle of the front of the body as well. So, going down the spine, I do want the whoops. Click here and shift click there. There we go. Neck, top of neck. Okay. Oops, I didn't mean to do those. Look at the wireframe just to make sure I'm not getting more than I want here. Okay. This would have to meet up with something. I can't just have it stop there. So let's see if we can do that without that for the time being. And see, we'll see once we lay out the UVs how it's looking, and then decide if we want to do more cuts. And cut. All right, and then probably cut around the face, you know, where we don't interrupt. Probably easier to do something like this. Shift double click and then cut around that antenna. That should work well, actually. Okay, well, I'm not sure if I have enough cuts yet, but it's a good start. So let's see what we get. It's going to want me to select the actual UVs. So I right mouse click, choose UV and select those, and then unfold. And already we have an okay UV layout. And here's where we go and find the problems. I can already tell that's not going to work. And the way to see if it's good or bad is to click on this little guy, which will give you color feedback. And what you really want is white. Blue means that there's more space proportionally than you need, and red means it's really stretched. So I can see that this is his body. This is going to be a problem because I didn't do my cuts right. It's attached on the top and bottom, so this needs to be cut differently. And I'm just going to select an edge here and see where that is. That's the shoulder, if you look. I see what happens. So I cut the arms and I cut the neck, but there's still this connection between the neck and the shoulders, so I'm going to cut those. And then let's look at the bottom here. What's this? Yeah, that's the between where his two legs are cut, so that needs to be cut as well. So I'll cut that. And then let's lay it out again. Okay, a lot more white, a lot less red. So another thing that you often want to do once you get to this point, yeah, the belly button is going to be red because of the way it's built. So it's so small you might not even notice it, but if you did need to paint detail in there, you could, cut out the belly button or something. But I don't think it's going to matter that much. Now The next thing is the face. So to pick all the UVs of this shell, you can go to UV and select some UVs, and then Control right mouse click and say to shell. And then I'm using my scale tool, and you see I scale it up. See how it's turning white first of all, but then if you keep scaling, it gets blue, and that's going to give me plenty of room to paint some detail on the face. So, you know, the color feedback gets confusing now because, oh, this is red now, it's bad, but it's not really bad because it was okay before we disproportionately scaled up the face. And you might want to do the back too, but if the back doesn't have detail, it's not as important. So then, once you've done that, let's select the UVs of all of them, and then automatically move them around to fit. And now they've been, you know, sized and fit in here nicely. And you've got a pretty good UV layout. There's not a million little pieces flying around. You shouldn't have too much pinching or stretching anywhere. You can look at the checker view, also see what that looks like. Let's turn off the other color feedback, and we should be able to see that here. Oh, viewport 2.0 needs to be turned on to see that, apparently. Okay, so you can look at the checkers and see that it's not, you know, it looks pretty good. There's no crazy stretching going on that I can see. So that should paint pretty well.